you can spend about another 10 minutes
Huh.
and explain the mandate, how you conceive the mandate, how you try to carry out the mandate, and
Okay.
kind of results or whatever, how it is going.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
uh, yeah. That's a always a very important question for me, because it gives me an opportunity to introspect also.
yeah,
Because regularly having this question and responding to also helps us to understand certain things. Uh, Means for me, as an individual, in initial, like mid 90s, when I completed my education, means like my education has been in mass communication and journalism. So primary, by education, there was no idea that I'm going to work as activist, or the going to function as civil society organization at any point of time. But initially, I found some opportunity to work in South Chhattisgarh. That time, Chhattisgarh used to be a part of Madhya Pradesh, and the very first assignment in my post graduation post graduation academic session, I found to work in Bastar, in which is now the seriously like this Naxal affected zone in Chhattisgarh. So that was actually a study on safe drinking water and sanitation. So I found that opportunity to spend 6 months in Bastar. And you can imagine that if a person who is just completing a college education and receive this kind of opportunity, so it will also have a very strong impact on the nature, on the thought process, on the understanding of that. How do you see the world? How do you see the state? How do you see the society? So the kind of plight and the issues I saw those 6 months, and when I came back and completed my education, and I tried to write those issues, that what I saw in the Naxal affected, why actually this situation actually emerges, and what kind of exploitation, the modus operandi of exploitative forces, all these things, the first hand understanding was there. So when I tried, I wanted to write on all these things as journalist, but not given any kind of opportunity. And I was like, from the very beginning, I was stopped to not to write on all these things, not to express these kind of things, that which were having a tone like how society and state together exploit tribal population, and the from all forms, socially, economically, physically, in all forms, how they exploit. So I was not allowed to write on all these things, and so I thought that I should spend more time to understand that how these things work, and what, because I got understanding that I don't know about the society in the very initial days. So we got some opportunity to do some surveys. Like that time in India, these total literacy campaigns was on rise. Like government was making a lot of investment on literacy movements. So I got some opportunity to do the evaluations of these literacy programs through we got our organization registered, and that time there were no research organizations in place. Mostly it was very rarely any NGOs were working as research organizations. So we immediately got an opportunity to do these evaluations. So through these evaluations, I got opportunity to travel in different districts in Uttar Pradesh, in Haryana, in Rajasthan, in Gujarat, in Maharashtra, for conducting these evaluations. So it was the first time to work with the government also, because all these assignments were given by the government. So I found that actually when we were doing evaluations, we were finding that after having 10 years of literacy movement, literacy campaign, the literacy level is 12%, 13%, 15%. And we used to submit our reports to the government, and they used to be in shock that, look, oh, you will, if you are saying that it is only 12%, then it will be a very bad situation for us. So make it 50%, make it 60%. So we were forced to actually change the findings of all these literacy evaluations. And on across any district we go, it is 15%, 12%, and we used to have a lot of fight with the government. And we found that if we don't change the findings, they were not paying our money, the evaluation, the last installment mostly. So they were not paying this money. And they were asking that you will have to manipulate the findings. You will have to say that the literacy level is like 70%, 60%. So we said, no, we cannot do that. So ultimately, in many cases, we had to sacrifice the installments and a lot of problems were there. So we left this work in 1999 and we said that we cannot work on this. And that time, actually, Harsh Mandar, and Harsh Mandar, because since Harsh Mandar was the MP cadre IAS, and in 2000, he became country director of ActionAid, national country director. So when he became country director, so he called us that do you have something in your mind? Because we were knowing each other before he joined ActionAid, so he knew that what I wanted to do. So he particularly called me, and he said that, do you have any idea? So I said that I don't have any idea, but I want to work with media, for media, and I want to make sure that these issues which I see, that these are the real issues. The water is the real issue, the displacement is the real issue, exploitation is the real issue. I saw in Chhattisgarh, where the money lenders are giving money to the tribal families at the rate of 300% of interest rate, annual interest rate. So I think all these situations should be raised, and our middle class should know that, look, see that this is also a part of your society, and look, see that in the other parts of your state or the communities what is happening. But media is not able to understand because of all these pressures from the liberal economic policies. They have a different kind of mandate, they have different kind of priorities, so they don't want to manage this. So they said that, okay, make a plan. We did not have any organization that time, and he said that, okay, you don't have organization, so we will make a direct plan and you implement it. So we said that, okay, and we came out with this program, and the primary target, we decided that let us provide support to the district and block level journalists, because that time in 2000, by around that, these journalists work on the ground, but they don't have any kind of formal education, formal training, writing, presentation, expressions, how to investigate issues. So I said that we want to create opportunities for these journalists, because for us, they are the main source of information. If they have proper understanding how to see the issues, how to see the poverty issue, how to see the exploitation issue, how to present it with evidence. So that's what we want to do. And we want to have a capacity building training program for them. So they have approved it. And we started coming out with this kind of program. In 2001, we started this program. It was a 15 days residential training program for the regional journalists, for the rural journalists. It was a free of cost program, 15 days residential program on research, how to do research, how to collect evidences, how to see the systems, how to see how your parliament and legislative institutions function, systems function. All these components were covered. But later on, after 3 years, we found that actually, since these rural journalists don't have any space, any authority to decide what will be covered in media, what will be published, the actual decision is being taken by the editors or the news editors. And even if these rural journalists are writing something on displacement, the editor is not approving it. They are saying, no, this will not be published. So after 3 years, we found, after doing training program for almost 400 journalists, we trained in 3 years, and they expressed that we write on these issues, we have started writing, but our editor is not giving space. So then after 4 years, we started providing, working with the journalists, senior journalists, the decision making, with the editors, with the news editors. So with them, we started engaging with them. We started changing their mindset. We started taking them into our advisory board, our selection committee for the media fellowship program. So that the idea was that how to change the mindset of the senior journalists, the editors, so that they also start respecting the issues which are being submitted by the local journalists, the regional journalists, the district level journalists. And that was one point. The second thing, for making it more evidence based, we saw a lot of data come in. NSSO gives you a lot of data, National Sample Survey Organization, Health Department gives you a lot of data, WHO, World Health Organization gives you data, but it is not covered mostly in media, because media is not capable enough to understand that what is the definition, the terminology is very tough, language is in English. So because of all these things, the journalists are not in a position to actually raise these issues, use these evidences and data. So we decided that we will actually convert this existing data in a media friendly format. So started translating it, simplifying it for the media use, so that whenever they are using any information, whenever they are covering a issue of poverty or maybe malnutrition or child deaths, so they have a larger data in place also with the scientific definition. So information facts and data analysis and all these things in the media friendly format, that's we are doing. The idea was to make all these things evidence based. When we started working in 2001, that was the time when the first PIL was filed on hunger. This PUCL case was filed in April 2001. And in Harsh Mandar was there, and he said that since you know that how to collect data, so it is now your responsibility to train others that how to collect data on hunger. And that was the first time when I got exposed to the NGOs and the grassroots organizations, and I came to know that actually NGOs don't have any kind of capacity to collect evidences, because they have been in service delivery mode. So they are running their own hospitals or schools or just having organizations, but they don't have a track of what is happening in government programs. They don't have any data. They don't do any analysis. So from that was my first exposure in year 2001 with this Right to Food case. And that was the first time when Right to Food campaign asked me to do the verbal autopsies of starvation death cases. And they said that you have to collect, like we have from Chhattisgarh, from Rajasthan, from Haryana, from Madhya Pradesh. So they were asking me to go to different places, and because there is no formal mechanism to investigate a starvation death. Even WHO has not provided any mechanism. Only forensic science can prove that whether the person who has died for how many days that person has not eaten. But there is hunger is not a cause of death in the scientific forensic, even in your the causes of death list. So because of all these things, the biggest challenge for us was to that how to collect circumstantial evidences, which will further prove that this is actually, all these circumstances are proving that this is a starvation death or this is a malnutrition death. So, so we started developing all these tools with the support of other experts and organizations, and we started using all these methods at the community level. And we were even within the Right to Food campaign, we were given this responsibility to organize training programs. Means we conducted these training programs from Karnataka to Nagaland. So in different places, we were going to different organizations, training them to visualize, to understand that what is hunger, that how will you prove this is a starvation death or this is a situation of chronic hunger. So collecting all these information, evidences, making tools, developing tools, also doing field testing and providing this support on ground to these organizations. So this is what we did. And that's how we were able to actually develop a strong base. Maybe I think I personally have conducted almost 200 trainings in last 20 years, very intensive trainings on this particular component, that how to collect these evidences, data, how to do analysis of schemes implementation and all these things. So that because all these data were to be actually submitted in the Supreme Court. So in Supreme Court, you cannot go with a general statement. You have to have evidences. So a lot of time, many a times we see, there was a question that if these are challenged by the government, then what? So all these issues, and I can say that in Madhya Pradesh, we have conducted investigations in almost 1,300 malnutrition death cases, but not a single case has been challenged by the government that this is a wrong case or this is not the correct case, because we have been creating such a strong base of evidences, data, analysis, affidavits, so that actually never they never said, they were saying that no, this is not a malnutrition death case, but they never said that we are wrong. They could not counter it. So in all these processes, so that's how we started working with the civil society organizations. Third component was that initially the image of CSO has been very critical in 2-3 different levels. Media has always considered CSOs are actually don't work with a genuine intent. They are corrupt, they make money, they are not accountable, they exploit people. So that is the understanding towards the NGOs, towards the in media. So that was also one of the very strong objective of ours, that how do we change this mindset of media persons, that no, CSOs are playing a very constructive role and positive role in managing and changing the socio-economic conditions of the people. So we are not negative, we are not anti-state, we follow the human values. So that was also a very strong challenge. So that's why while working with the media persons, we also we added one strategy that whenever we are giving you a report of starvation death, don't trust us, don't believe us. If you have any question, we should go to the community, we should have exposure to the community, go directly and just see that what is the condition. So we have facilitated almost 100 exposure visits to the journalists, so that they also have a first-hand information, first-hand observation, so that they also should feel. And data will not help you to feel the situation. When you will see the situation, then only you will be able to feel, oh, this is the situation. So we have facilitated almost 100 exposure visits. It helped us two ways. So they also accepted this is an issue, this is a serious issue, and we should work on it. And they also changed their mindset towards CSOs and NGOs, those who are working on the ground. So that's how that's how we actually started working. Another thing what we found, there was also a conflict of understanding between movements, movements and NGOs. Movements always feel NGOs just make money, they just take money, and they don't have any political perspective. They work as charity organizations, they work as service delivery organizations. Their work cannot change the socio-economic politics. So that's what their understanding. They always feel, even I can name like organizations like Narmada Bachao Andolan, or maybe the major organizations working on the displacement or environment. They always felt that in 2000, 2001, when I was being exposed to these movements, they also had, no, you should not come to our area, because if you come, others will feel that NGOs are actually playing a very important role in Narmada Bachao Andolan. So it took some time for us, almost 3-4 years, to actually create a dialogue between movements and NGOs. And we said that NGOs also play a very different kind of constructive role. We can support you. We cannot lead Narmada Bachao Andolan. Vikas Samvad cannot lead Narmada Bachao Andolan. Narmada Bachao Andolan will be led by the Narmada Bachao Andolan leaders. But there are certain things where actually NGOs can support Narmada Bachao Andolan. So we did a lot of surveys for Narmada Bachao Andolan and provided that data to them, that look, this is what the larger situation of food insecurity in your area. This is what the larger situation of education in displacement affected area. This is the larger situation of maternal health in your area. So all these evidences helped them to actually give a different narrative to their arguments, the impact of displacement on the tribal people. So they started also using this data of health from the perspective of displacement. Also, they use data on education from the perspective of displacement. So that has been one of the very important segment that we adopted, that we will not lead from the front, but we will investigate, we will study, and we will provide you some facilitating exposure visits of the journalists to the area, so that journalists also go to the movement area, because there were a lot of because the narrative was being set by the political forces that NBA is an anti-national organization. But when we started producing these informations and evidences, or we started taking the journalists to the field, so it also helped to understand and see firsthand, no, this is not they are doing. They are not actually using their strength to create any kind of unrest. They are trying to manage certain things at the grassroots level. So all these things were to that where we can support the grassroots movements with evidences and data. And now we are also doing capacity building programs, because now they feel that schemes are also important. Maybe it may be PDS programs. So now movements and campaigns are also, other campaigns are saying, tribal rights campaigns, gender-based campaigns, displacement-based campaigns are saying that come and train our workers on PDS, on Anganwadi programs, on nutrition programs, on maternal health programs. So now they are feeling that all these schemes are also important. So our role has been actually a very in a critical manner, that we actually play a supportive role in actually give a voice with the evidence, with the capacities, the skills. Nowadays we are actually building capacities of the members of the movements in terms of digital tools, how to use digital tools for the cause, how to use Twitter, how to use digital platforms, how you can raise voice with the digital platforms. Because you have to develop new communication models, otherwise traditional communication models will not help you to amplify your voice. So new techniques, new technology for the cause, for the advocacy purpose, for the movement purpose, all these things, and just bridge the gap between media and movements and NGOs and media. So all these things, that how we can bridge with a perspective and evidence. How do you see, how do you perceive hunger and malnutrition? How do you perceive malnutrition? Malnutrition is not only a matter of supply of nutrition. It has, like, the structural causes of malnutrition is displacement. How you are snatching the resources from tribals, it is causing malnutrition. So all these approaches and understanding on maternal deaths or malnutrition and hunger deaths, pandemic, that how do you see pandemic, COVID pandemic, and how it is going to impact and what may happen. So developing papers on this. So we have developed some papers on this component also, manuals, modules, almost 70 modules have been developed, manuals and modules have been developed in the local context to support these organizations that, look, this is how things should be seen. So the perspective development has always been a very important part, and consistency. We are not leaving. We took up this hunger issue in 2001, and in 2020, constantly hunger issue and malnutrition is going on. And now, for example, now we are contributing to the Madhya Pradesh government in policy making. So it has been single-handedly we are working on policy making on nutrition, how the malnutrition. So we have put all these things, displacement, land, gender, all these issues as perspective, and government, state is ready to accept this perspective. So at one level, we are playing this role, and on the other hand, we are also trying to build the capacities on certain areas on data collection and evidences. So it's kind of a complex model, that understanding that how to handle the media sector so that they also play active role with a perspective for supporting these causes, these issues. So this is how this kind of a complex setup and constant knowledge generation. Almost 85 books and booklets we have published, and we have circulated somewhere around 300,000 copies of these publications in the last 15 years. So knowledge production is also a very important part. So it's not only training. You are doing a 3 days program meeting and training, and it is over. So we are not that manner. We just constantly trying to support with this knowledge generation project. So it's a complex kind of thing. So sometimes it looks like that this thing and that thing, that how it is linked with this component. But the primary objective, that how to actually make the civil society movement, both NGOs and campaigns and organizations, to work as evidence-based, how to have a very strong, solid argument, research-centric intervention, with a perspective, with a human rights, fraternity, freedom, justice perspective in every statement. So that is one component. And on the other hand, activating institutions like media. We now have a network of 1,000 journalists in 7 states. And that's why on hunger and malnutrition, we have facilitated more than 9,000 news stories in last 12, 13 years. 9, so actually that media.
9,000 stories.
9,000, more than 9,000 stories, media stories. And actually that has helped us to make hunger issue an electoral political issue. So that's why actually in 2000 elections, 2013 elections, 2018 elections, malnutrition became the core central issue in the elections. That we could do just because of this evidence-based process. Constantly media was raising this issue, and that's why you see every assembly session 25 questions and debates are taking place on malnutrition. Every single day malnutrition is covered in the media. So that has means like in my view, so I think that is what we feel, that is a one single point contribution, that media is not rejecting malnutrition and hunger issue now at least, and covering it in 90% cases now. We don't play a role. They are taking it in a suo moto manner. So that is what. So 1,000 journalist network is constantly talking to us, engaging with us on different issues, not only hunger now, on various issues, displacement, on environment policies, on agriculture issues. So now we have created a cadre of 1,000 journalists, those who are very positively engaging with us, and now they play a very constructive role for us at least. So I think we have made a beginning. I'm not saying this is the final level where we have reached, but we also feel the media sector, which is who is playing a very negative role. But now we differentiate. Media sector is a different thing, and journalist fraternity is different thing. We are seeing journalists and me as different from media. Media institutions have a different politics, but still we see a lot of opportunity and trust in the politics of the journalist fraternity. So that is the very specific politics of us, that how do we actually don't allow them to die, that fraternity, that journalists. So how to strengthen that fraternity, that society, because they are also being exploited by the media institutions. Journalists are being exploited by the media institutions. So that is what the politics that we follow. So that's why whenever we say that we don't generalize that media is negatively playing a role, that what is media, that has to be understood first, and then we need to decide that what should be the strategy and what should be the next level of interventions. So that's how actually, and that is a very strong strength of our work, media. So that is what, and we see that gradually they have changed their own perspective, approach, and they support us, and they whenever they sometimes they are also fed with negative things towards our work or organizations or some work, but we see that they always come in our support. So that is also what we see in last 20. Otherwise, it is not difficult to survive while working with media for 20 years, because it's a very sensitive domain. So we could survive because that trust is there. We have made our politics always clear to these people. So and that's why we could facilitate 9,000 media stories on malnutrition, and a lot of major changes, like major shift in nutrition program. This private players were playing a very strong role in supply of nutrition. 1,000 crore rupees contract every year that was privatized, and we were fighting for last 12-13 years. Now it has been given to women groups. So that was, these kind of things were like, it's a huge thing. They were making 250,000 crore profit every year, and they are the very strong lobbies. Means they are controlling media institutions. They are running newspaper. So taking that contract from their hand and taking it to the women's self-help group on the ground, that's what I feel, that something could happen, and that is a very major thing for us, what we feel, because it has a lot of vested economic interest, political interest, because 250 crore profit in a year is not a small thing. So these kind of things we could do. So it's not only supply of nutrition, but larger systemic changes also are taking place. So this is how we see that many things are working after 5 years, 10 years, 12 years of work. So that's how we could develop, and we are now seeing as like things can change, and advocacy is very important thing, evidence is very important thing, changing perspective is very important thing, capacity building is important thing. Most of these terms, I think they are mentioned in the NGO programs, but I think we see all these terms in a very different perspective, very different manner. So that is what our overall setup is. So this is the thing. I don't know, Miss. Have I made it complex or what?
No. That's very good. I can understand your perspective very well. That is more or less the kind of perspective that I share.
Definitely. Sure. It was very nice talking to you, Basil.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Same here.